Inside your mind right now, there's this hidden battle going on. It's a conflict between two different versions of you. And believe it or not, the winner of that battle is shaping your choices, your memories, and yeah, even how happy you are. So to really get what's going on, we have to solve a little puzzle. Imagine you had to pick between two painful experiences. One's short, the other one is longer, and it has more total pain. I mean, the choice seems obvious, right? You'd avoid the longer one. And yet, when researchers actually put this to the test, 80% of people chose the longer, more painful option. So what on earth is going on here?
Well, the answer is hidden in this really clever and, kind of torturous little experiment. And it all has to do with putting your hand in some very, very cold water.
Okay, so here's the setup. In what they called the short trial, people put their hand in painfully cold water for 60 seconds. Ouch. In the long trial, they did that same 60 seconds, but then they had to keep their hand in for an extra 30 seconds while the water warmed up just a tiny bit. So objectively, the long trial is worse, right? It's literally more time in pain. But when they were asked which one they'd rather repeat, a staggering 80% chose the longer one. Now, this makes zero logical sense until you meet the two characters running the show inside your head.
See, the solution to this whole mystery is that the you who makes the decision isn't the same you that actually felt the pain. We are, in a very real way, split into two different selves.
So let's meet them. We've got the experiencing self and the remembering self. A good way to think about it is like this. One is the movie star, living through all the action, and the other is the quiet ghostwriter who tells the story about it all afterwards. Your experiencing self is the part of you that lives life from moment to moment. It's the one asking, does this hurt right now during that cold water thing? But here's the kicker. This self is totally mute. It has no voice when it comes to making choices. Your remembering self, though, that's your inner storyteller. It's the one that looks back and asks, so, how was that whole experience? It keeps the memories, it writes the story, and, this is absolutely crucial, it's the one that makes all of your future decisions. As the Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman puts it, the remembering self is the one in charge. It's the boss. It's the gatekeeper of your past and the architect of your future, even when its memories are totally wrong. And this, right here, is where the trouble really starts.
Because you see, your remembering self isn't like a historian carefully writing down everything that happened. Nope. It's more like a movie director, and it uses a really specific and kind of biased set of rules to cut together a highlight reel of your life.
It doesn't record the whole movie. It just picks out a few key scenes. And if you can understand these two weird rules, you'll understand exactly why 80% of people chose more pain.
Okay, so rule number one is the peak end rule. Basically, your memory of an event isn't some grand average of the whole thing. Instead, your brain just grabs two snapshots. The most intense moment, that's the peak, and the very final moment, that's the end. And then it just averages those 2 points to create the entire memory of the event.
A classic study on colonoscopy patients shows this perfectly. Patient A had a short 8-minute procedure. Patient B suffered for 24 minutes, 3 times longer. Now, both of them felt the same level of peak pain. But look at the end. Patient A's procedure ended when the pain was still pretty high. Patient B's procedure, even though it was way longer, ended with very little pain. And when they were asked about it later, patient A remembered it as being way, way worse. That bad ending created a bad memory, even though they suffered for a lot less time overall.
And that brings us right to the second rule, duration neglect. It is exactly what it sounds like. The remembering self pretty much completely ignores how long an experience actually lasted. Whether it was 8 minutes of pain or 24 minutes of pain, it barely even registers. Only the peak and the end matter. Think of it like this. Imagine you're listening to the most beautiful, incredible 40-minute symphony. It's just pure bliss. But then, in the very last second, there's this horrible, loud, scratching sound. Your remembering self will tell you the entire experience was ruined. But was it really? Your experiencing self just had 40 minutes of absolute joy. But the memory, the story, it's now totally dominated by that awful ending.
So what does this all mean? How do these wacky memory rules actually affect our lives? Well, they don't just mess with our past, they actively mess with our future choices through something called the focusing illusion.
Check out this other experiment. Researchers told one group of people about a woman named Jen who lived a very happy life for 60 years. People rated that life pretty highly. Then, they told another group about a Jen who lived the same happy 60 years, but then had an extra 5 years that were just slightly happy. Now this is bizarre, but this second life was rated as worse overall. Adding 5 perfectly decent years made the whole story seem less good, just because it diluted the average. That is a classic case of the remembering self judging the story, not the total amount of happiness.
And this all leads to the core idea of the focusing illusion, which is this: nothing in life is as important as you think it is while you are thinking about it.
Let's try it right now. I'm going to ask you a question. How much pleasure do you get from your car? Go on, think about it. An answer probably just popped into your head, right? You've got a feeling, maybe a number.
But chances are you didn't actually answer the question I asked. You answered a substitute question, which was, how much pleasure do I get from my car when I'm actively thinking about it? You completely ignored the fact that 99% of the time you're in your car, you're not thinking about the car at all. You're thinking about work or your family or what's for dinner. That's the focusing illusion, right there in your own head.
And this illusion is just everywhere. It's why we think that new phone is going to make us happy for months and months, when really the novelty wears off in a few days. It's why we're so sure that people in, say, California must be deliriously happy all the time. Because when we think of California, we focus on the sun, and we completely forget about traffic and taxes and all the other boring stuff that actually makes up daily life.
So this brings us to the big one. This is the central conflict of our lives. We have these two selves, and they both want something different. So, which one should we listen to?
The problem is this. Our experiencing self lives life as a stream of moments. But our remembering self, the one calling all the shots, makes choices not to create better moments, but to create better memories, a better story to tell ourselves down the road.
Kahneman calls this the tyranny of the remembering self. We're basically slaves to this inner storyteller, often choosing things that might be less pleasant in the moment just because they'll make for a better story later. I mean, think about a grueling hike up a mountain. It can be miserable in the moment, but it creates this fantastic story of achievement that you get to tell forever.
And that forces a really profound question on all of us. Should our main goal be to pile up as many happy moments as we can for our experiencing self, or should we focus on crafting a really compelling narrative for our remembering self, even if that means we have to suffer a bit along the way? An average life is made up of something like 500 million moments, 500 million. But your memory will just condense all of that down into a single story, defined only by its peaks and its end. So, knowing that, I'll leave you with this. Which self are you really living for? The one experiencing all those moments, or the one telling the story?